Recording is on.
Hello and welcome to the DXgov governance discussion. Today is the 22nd of June, 2022. A few proposals live. We can jump right into the proposal roundup. So first proposal on Mainnet is actually staking ETH with Stakewise. So I know this has been a discussion over the past couple of weeks regarding the DPEG of Lido. There was some discussion in the community whether it would not be better to acquire Lido instead of Stakewise ETH due to the discount. But in the meantime, pretty much all stake tokens have depegged. And currently, Lido is slightly lower, a couple of bucks lower than staked ETH. But on the other hand, Stakewise also pays out reward as a separate token. So if you calculate that all of that in, they're pretty much at the same DPEG level. And for that reason, I believe it just makes sense to move on with Stakewise. We're still getting the discount there, and we're still supporting kind of like the original platform we wanted to stake with, which kind of puts more effort into the whole decentralization aspect. And so that proposal is live. It's passing in 3 days. It's currently passing. So if you want, check it out. And we'll also monitor the DPEG situation to make sure, we are getting a premium thanks to the DPEG. So, of course, another 2 proposals will be done as well for Stakewise. And during that time, we'll just monitor how the kind of DPEG situation evolves. Then we have a second proposal on Mainnet, which is the Caney Fork vested DXD claim from September 2020 to June 2021. So, of course, a few people have started claiming their DXD. Chris made a great proposal template. So if anyone else is looking to claim some of their DXD, they can, I'm sure Chris wouldn't mind if you take his template and claim yours according to that. Then moving on to Gnosis chain, we have buyback number 212, 13, 14, and 15 live. We have Cadence vested DXD withdrawal on Gnosis chain. We have Dave's Association ETH Paris stipend. We also have an amendment to the DX referral program. Not sure if Melanie, you want to give a quick overview of the exciting new stuff that's changing in the DX referral amendment.
Yeah, sure. Last year we, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. So last year we implemented our first DX referral, which essentially awarded DXDAO contributors for referring any new contributors into our ecosystem. And I recently made an amendment to the referral program to reflect the new guideline amounts. And basically it combined the rewards into 4 new levels. So 1 and 2 would be together, 3 and 4 would be together, 5 and 6, and 7 and 8. And the reward amounts would be split into 2,000 for levels 1 and 2, 4,000 for levels 3 and 4, 5,000 for levels 5 and 6, and 6,000 for levels 7 and 8. More details can be found in the actual proposal. I just wanted to give just a brief overview of it. It was in the forum for about a week, and I didn't receive any additional comments or suggestions. So based off of that, I feel like the community is good to move forward with it, but please check out that proposal and vote on it if you'd like to see those changes go through.
Fabulous. Cool. Well, moving on. We have a couple of worker proposals live on Gnosis chain as well. We have WixZ, 2 proposals, one from his last worker period, one for the new one. Correct. Then we have Nathan as well, the same, one for the end of his last worker proposal, one for the new one. Then we have George Lopez contributor proposal live, as well as Melanie's contributor proposal. And that pretty much already sums up all the proposals. A couple of other items we had on the agenda was actually regarding RAI. So I don't know if most of you have been on the forum. You will have likely seen the forum about offloading some RAI from the treasury. So I just shared a link in the chat where you can kind of see the Reflex of Finance dashboard. And RAI currently has an annual redemption rate of negative 18.4%, which means that RAI itself is actually being devalued at that amount over 1 year time frame. And RAI's current redemption price, the price at which you can actually mint RAI, is $2.9. But on the open market, so on Uniswap and Curve, have pretty good liquidity, and you're still able to kind of sell off your RAI at around $3.03, $3.04, around that kind of price range. And also taking into account that DXDAO owns almost 20% of all outstanding RAI, people are actually interested in buying this RAI to like set off their debt. And by selling our RAI, it's also likely that the annual redemption rate will decrease. And as the market recovers, that will probably also happen if the market does recover. And so we're currently just like in a situation where we kind of have to decide if it makes sense currently to kind of sell the RAI and like enter some other stablecoin positions, for example, USDC, DAI, increase those holdings, perhaps some LUSD. And I guess we want to do so not necessarily in a rush, but the annual redemption rate is negative, so we kind of do want to make a decision and move forward with that. The market is very liquid, and I think if you also take into account that I think the last RAI was purchased when ETH was at $4,500. I think we're in a very good position, even if RAI is currently a couple of cents below the price we bought it at. It's still, definitely nothing to worry about, but something we could think about how to take action on that. And there's a forum post live, and Chris actually just replied to the forum post. But if anyone else has any comments or ideas about that, please feel free to share.
Is the RAI redemption rate something that is getting paid from like one party to another?
That is the internal price for minting or repaying RAI in the like Reflexer system. So like in DAI, when you pay off your debt, the DAI is always 1.00. But in like Reflexer, you could be paying off your debt, but the price your debt is being paid at or the price it's being minted is actually moving up and down. And it's moving up and down based off like the collateral in the system. And so it's like moving down because the collateral in the system has lost value. There's been that. And so it's targeting a lower price. And that's why there's that difference right now.
So does that mean, can you like illustrate it with like an example if I'm trying to get my collateral out?
Yeah.
You're saying like one RAI, it's actually like 17% less?
Yeah. Or not 17%. It's like worth the right now, one RAI in the system's debt is worth $2.97, right? Even though the market price of that RAI is $3.06. So if you had collateral, this is why like people that have debt in Reflexer that have RAI debt are kind of in a pickle because they have to buy RAI at $3.06 on the open market or $3.04. But then when they pay it back, they're only getting credit for like $2.97 or 98 cents or whatever it is now.
Gotcha. And what is, sorry, I mean, I'm going to dig more into this. I think it's a little bit complicated, but so what is the relationship between the annualized redemption rate and the redemption price?
Yeah, that is a relationship over like time, right? So it's like the two prices over like annualized over 1 year, whatever the change in that is. So it's like, I think the redemption price is actually the only thing that changes. It's like the annualized rate is a reflection of the difference between the redemption price and the market price.
Oh, okay. Perplexer. Yeah. Goal for the week: understand RAI.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, they actually have a lot of documentation, but it's like almost too much documentation. But maybe it's also helpful to like run through like what the arbitrage opportunity should be here and maybe why people are not taking it. So right now, you know, we were just talking about how you could repay debt, right? And so if you had RAI debt, you don't want to really repay it because you have to pay more for RAI than you're getting credit for. But leveraging up on RAI gives you the opposite, right? So you could deposit ETH and mint RAI at $2.97 in the system, and then go on the open market and sell it at $3.06. And then you just like make a quote unquote profit on that. Now the reason it's tricky is you can't actually just continually continue that arbitrage loop, because what you would do is, right, so you would deposit ETH, mint RAI, so now you have RAI debt, and then you sell that RAI, but you have to sell that RAI to ETH. And then you take that ETH and you have to put it back into Reflexer and mint more RAI. So every time you're doing it, you're actually leveraging up. And so that makes the trade like a lot riskier. And then of course, like in these environments, like the demand for leverage is already very, very low. Well, it's in the forum now.
Yeah, I also want to do some of my own research just to try to understand the system better. But I mean, basically, what you're saying, right, is that ETH is going down in price, and so that's going to pull RAI down with it. So it makes sense to get out of our RAI position, essentially.
The Reflexer system is setting a lower target price for RAI, right? And that's because it's gone down, right? So I think there's also important that like if ETH turns around, right, then like the system will change, right? And the redemption price could rise, and then especially if people are willing to lever up more because the price goes up, they're not worried about liquidations. Then like the system could change elsewhere. But like right now, the system is like targeting a lower price for RAI, and so this is why actually Amin, when they originally talked about RAI, it was kind of called dampened ETH, because it would really just like soak up this volatility into like a somewhat like more stable asset, but it would still like float around. But what actually happened is, because there is this arbitrage opportunity where everyone can see that what the system is trying to target, the market participants like get out before the system actually reaches there. And by getting out, you're actually like stabilizing the system. And that's like why RAI is stable, because like the market participants can see like the writing on the wall. And so in this case, if DXDAO has a lot of like RAI and you see that you're yielding negative, then you're incentivized to sell, which then also helps like the system get back into balance. Dave and I were talking about before this, is like, I also, I think RAI is like, because it's complicated, but like it does seem to be like the most decentralized, like clean, thing, stable coin or stable asset, I guess is a better way that DXDAO is used. And so like, I don't know what the number is, but if it was -3% yielding, like maybe that would be like worth it, considering the other decentralization benefits that RAI gives DXDAO. Because if we do sell RAI here, like it's going to go into USDC, DAI, or LUSD, or we can talk about what stable coin, but like there really aren't any other like that many good options. So I think there is a point where like we're willing to eat some negative yield or some like downside, because there are like other decentralization benefits. And as Ross says, like, so we plan on buying back later. I think that should be like a goal. I don't know if we should make it like, condition on what, or talk about that now, or maybe just like target it if things change. And I should say, like, again, like if the market changes, market goes up, then, the whole rate could kind of change a little bit, and it maybe won't be out of whack. Now, of course, it could go down, and then we get like probably a lower target price there, and the system is like kind of further incentivizing things there. But yeah, there's obviously like the system kind of depends on the market conditions.
Is there some idea, if I'm not sure if you would know this, but like is there some idea of like, given a certain ETH price, then RAI should settle out at a certain RAI price? Is that a wrong assumption? Like, for example, if ETH were to just stay at $1,000 for 1 year, do we have an expectation about what the price of RAI would be?
Yeah, I think the variable is how fast market participants like react to the incentives, right? So like right now they're not really reacting to the incentives to like close the, because really like what makes RAI stable is the fact that market participants see what the system is doing and then they like front run it basically, and that actually makes it like stable in a way. But I don't know, like kind of your question, maybe there should be, yeah, I don't know what like the inputs would be to determine that. I assume maybe like the overall collateral rate too of the system, but yeah, not sure. Multivariable function, that sounds smart.
Dave is basically saying it's complicated. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because if it's a negative 17% interest rate, that sort of implies that like RAI would go down 17% annually, but obviously that's not necessarily constant. I don't know. It's a interesting, complicated system. The other thing that's like kind of striking is if you actually look at the holders of RAI, DXDAO is number one by far and holds about 18% of the RAI supply, which I guess in some ways is cool, but maybe also concerning just in itself. Yeah, Ross asking another question, which is basically like, what is the liquidity of RAI?
Yeah, you can sell 2 million of RAI on Uniswap today, and you just have a negative price impact of 1.2%. So it's there's deep liquidity, and Curve has pools as well.
Yeah,
Curve has
relatively speaking, I guess, right? Because
yeah, but
for 16 million supply, it's or not even what the supply is $16 million worth. So the fact that you can sell 2 million with $1 is pretty impressive.
Yeah, exactly. There's a RAI dial.
Yeah, I think like almost most RAI printed is being used to like as liquidity provisioning. That's not in DXDAO. There aren't that many other use cases for it yet. And I guess like the other question I have, and I don't really think there's an answer, is this like an opportunity for DXDAO to be like, I don't know, more involved in RAI ecosystem, or do kind of something as this is changing, or as we're talking to different parties. But I don't really think there's anything except, I think we're still interested in RAI and still want to hold RAI through all of this. Yeah.
So this proposal calls for offloading 700K.
Correct. Yeah.
And what do you guys have thoughts on like where we want to end up? Like, is this? Yeah.
In terms of like how much RAI to sell, or and what coins?
Yeah. Where do we want to end up in our RAI position? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the like redemption rate and how that changes, right? So it's really difficult to say. I think over the long term, if you look like at RAI over the year, the redemption rate has been pretty much around 0. I mean, if you just think about it, when we bought RAI, we bought it at like 3.05, 3.06, and it's at 3.04 right now. So I think it's highly dependent on that. I think it makes sense to hold some RAI still, and then just depending on how the market evolves, reevaluate that on like a ongoing basis, because it's really just dependent on the redemption rate. I would say, like if it stays so negative, highly negative, of course it doesn't make sense for us to hold too much. But I think it's never been so long, like negative for a really long period of time. But then again, we've also not had such a bear market in a while. So there we go. Someone is sharing the redemption rate. So if you look over like the past year, it actually doesn't look that bad.
Is that chart a year long?
A year and a half. I think this is since launch. So you can see March, April.
So ETH is actually going up for the early part of this. Well,
yeah, I wonder if this could be almost too early to draw. Like there's a lot of volatility here, even though ETH was like roaring during this time. It seems like these, you can see they're like a little bit lumpier here. So that's might have been like the market had stabled. So I guess in November, the market was going up a little.
That was a peak right there. And then after the market starts coming down, it goes decidedly negative on the rate.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And so it's basically going, down. Since then, market came back a little bit. So it is obviously very affected by, the price of ETH. And I guess go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say you said it. You recalled this that it's dampened ETH is one way people described it, right? So I mean, at a high level, like conceptually, like if ETH is just going down over a long period, then RAI should be going down as well, right? I guess we just don't have a great concept of by how much exactly.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was kind of realizing. So the annual redemption rate is actually how much this number, the redemption price, is set to go down in the system right now. So like right now it's at $2.97. And if like nothing else changes in the system, it will go down at 18% a year. And it's going down right now at like 0.019% there. And so like this is actually like the target one that they're using. And I don't know what is it's not a black box, but a complicated box that like ends up spitting out this negative 18%. But this is the rate at which this number is changing.
The current rate at which it's changing at it, but presented as an annualized number. Yeah.
So I think we should, talking about the stake ETH thing, like and how we dealt with that and kind of talking about that, it was a really good discussion. I think people kind of understood the financial opportunity maybe, and then balancing some things, and then just kind of in the middle of that, stake-wise ETH depegged, and it became like a better opportunity for DXgov to kind of keep going on its original strategy there. And I think part of that was because of the, as the market moves and changes, it's hard to time things precisely. So even for this one, and maybe especially for this one, because DXgov will like surely either affect the market price or affect in the RAI system. Like there's a whole other thing of how paying off, affecting the market price there will actually affect the RAI system. I think it makes sense to like not do, a huge amount all at once, but to see how this plays out. So I don't know how we did this in terms of proposal. If there's a proposal that would like authorize a total amount, and then that would be split up in separate proposals. That's what we did with like the stake ETH. Or maybe there's like one proposal that sets out like, $750,000 or $1 million of RAI to be like sold, and we could even follow up with another proposal like right after that if this was something that needed to be done. But I think that there are a lot of moving parts here, and DXgav's like moves will affect the market. So I think we want to be mindful of that.
The other question I have, sort of a goal for myself to try to understand, and I guess also just a general question I have kind of from a risk perspective for DXgov, is seeing the fact that the $3 million worth of RAI that DXgov has is like 18% of outstanding RAI. Like what would happen if just the usage of RAI were to like decline, sort of like, just keep going down, and like DXgov was left with a super big chunk of the remaining supply? Like what if it went down to, $5 million of RAI and DXgov has 60% or something? Like what are the implications of that? And something that I'm like have in my mind as like sort of a reference point is actually like the emergency shutdown or I guess in the end it wasn't an emergency shutdown, but just a shutdown of the single collateral DAI or Psi that they rebranded it to from Maker.
Yeah, John, is Psi still, even with ETH prices where they are? Do you know if Psi is still worth, like, one Psi was worth like $20 like 6 months ago?
I'm pretty sure it's still above $1. I can
because you
Yeah,
get to
but
claim.
it has no liquidity.
Well, you
like
get to
this
claim.
Psi.
No, Psi, you can claim the ETH that's backing it, basically, right? And so, is that what happens with RAI? Like, if everyone else gets rid of their RAI, does RAI become the thing that can claim the ETH that's in the system, and then actually could become valuable, like more valuable?
Right, like which would be something that would be like a good setup, right? Like that would give assurance, right? That like, oh, if this thing were to like kind of fall apart to the point where there just wasn't enough RAI left, enough RAI left in the system to like support people, who want to redeem their collateral, that like it just get shut down, and then the RAI is basically directly redeemable for the collateral. Because you're right, like the Psi. If you still have Psi, you can go directly to the old contracts and redeem it for the underlying collateral ETH without having to be the CDP. And that's like what a shutdown is basically you open up the CDPs to anybody who has RAI, I think, instead of just the owners of the CDPs or Psi. Yeah, the current price is still well above it.
DXgov has some Psi. Has like how much in the treasury? 6.65 Psi, which is $39.
This is a bit of an aside, but I actually think maybe there'd be some collectible value someday, because it's like, the original decentralized dollar. It's like one of those Lydian coins from ancient Lydia. Anyway.
Yeah. So I don't answer your question, John, about the emergency shutdown. I don't really know or understand the specifics of it. I know that there is an emergency shutdown, and I think it is like somewhat similar to MakerDAO, because like the original, like this RAI system is actually like, some would argue like almost what the original Maker system was. This guy Nicola, who designed both, actually was involved in both. But I think the way the market is broken right now, or the things that's like Amin is like kind of worried about and wants DXgov to sell, is the fact that the market price is so high, right? And the market price being high and the redemption price being low, right? The bigger that gap gets, the less people are going to want to pay off the RAI debt, because it's like not worth it. And so that's where, like, I don't know, liquidity crisis or something could come in. But I think the system would be designed to keep lowering this redemption price, so this gap would just get bigger and bigger, and it should incentivize, really, I think, like people to lever up at that point, because that is like a large enough gap. But I think, the big concern is that the market price stays so much higher than the redemption price, and then people don't want to buy RAI to pay off their debt.
Yeah, and I mean these systems, right? Like RAI and like the original single collateral Maker, or even really Maker today, like the product they're sort of offering is like it's like a two-sided product. One is a stable coin, but on the other side, it's offering leverage, right? Or like borrowing, which can be used without much leverage or with like more leverage, right? So I guess in crypto, which is very speculative, a lot of the like usage of Maker, and I'm presuming the reflexor system, is to get leverage, right? But we're seeing why that's not always a good thing. But yeah, I'm guessing that's sort of drying up, which is what's driving this gap here, right? The demand for leverage has gone down a lot. But yeah, good points to bring up. Glad you guys are on top of this.
Sweet, yeah. And then, well, the last item was just a bi-weekly trade volume update of DXT, which with the same state of the market currently, it's decreased again. So we have a 3-month average volume of 54,000. And of course, we also do our buybacks based on that volume amount. So the size of the buybacks will likely decrease slightly over the next couple of weeks. And that's pretty much it. So not sure if anyone else has anything to share. Otherwise, we can call it a day.
There is this interesting post. I don't really have anything to say directly about it yet, although I think it is relevant to DXDAO just because of our involvement with Gnosis chain. Yeah, you knew it. Here it is. There's this forum post about the XDAI team's involvement in Gnosis chain going forward, and it gets a little spicy. And again, I don't really have much to say at this point, but something that we probably should have our eyes on. I guess I would say there are some questions that are like kind of in my mind after reading this thread. One is like, well, what is happening to the XDAI team? Obviously, they built a lot of the infrastructure which we rely on, so it would be nice from that perspective to have them continue to be involved. And yeah, what is happening to the ecosystem fund? Because that seems like it's supposed to be for the funds. These are all mentioned in the thread, but yeah, I mean, if you guys want to talk offline, we could also do it without the recording. But yeah, just some basic questions come to mind, which are like, yeah, kind of obvious, I think, after you read the thread.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I also think it's interesting, primarily just reading now and don't really see how to do something specifically if there's anything kind of to do, but definitely very, very relevant to DXDAO.
Yeah,